important. Have a look at the Chelsea Academy graduates from World War II to present. The vast majority, as you can imagine, are English players, from the likes of Rod Greenwood to Harry Berriman to Bobby Smith to Ron Harris to Clive Walker to Lee Frost to Graham Lasso to Paul Hughes to John Terry. You have to go to the 90s to find a person of Jamaican heritage that made that graduated from the Chelsea Academy. And who was that? That was Frank Sinclair, 1998 World Cup representative for Jamaica, Frank Sinclair. There was another player of Caribbean heritage that graduated through the Chelsea Academy system in the 90s, and that was Junior Mendes, former international of Montserrat. In the 2000s, there were three players of Jamaican heritage that graduated from the Chelsea Academy. And those individuals are Jermaine Beckford, and we know Jermaine Beckford, who made his debut for Jamaica in 2013 in that 1-1 draw against Panama, his only goal coming up against the United States in the qualifiers in that calendar year. Anthony Grant, we know his debut for the Reggae Boys came in 2021 against Mexico at the Azteca Stadium, and Sean Cummings, who made his debut for Jamaica in the 2014 World Cup qualifiers, but the year specifically was 2013. Former Chelsea player as well, and he was basically brought into the system under Mourinho. Although he didn't get a lot of playing time at Chelsea, he did operate within that system as well. And then you're further on into the 2000s, and what do you have here? Casey Palmer. Casey Palmer, who represented Jamaica in 2021 against the United States in Austria. To date, he's only capped thus far. But look at the other players that graduated within the 2010s. The Josh McEachrons of this world, Nathan Chalobah, Dominic Solanke, Declan Rice, Fakayo Tomori, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Mason Mount, Trevor Chalobah, Reece James, Conor Gallagher, Tammy Abraham, Mark Gehi, Jamal Musiala, Tariq Lamptey. Quite a lot of players made that transition, and I know you see a familiar face right here, Rohan Ince. Yep, Rohan Ince and Michael Kedman. Rohan Ince is a player that plays for Montserrat right now, and he started out at Chelsea as well. He's now playing at Woking, but in terms of his experience with Montserrat, this came in 2021. In relation to Michael Kedman, born in London but represented Trinidad and Tobago in 2022. That's when he made his debut. But now Kedman is operating in Iceland. That's where he plays his club football. So what do you see that you would say in common if you look across those names? You look at all of those names in terms of the persons of Jamaican heritage that went on to represent Jamaica. What do you see in common with every single one of those names? What stands out to you of all of them? So, Casey Palmer, Sean Cummings, Anthony Grant, Jermaine Beckford, and Frank Sinclair. What do you see that is in common, or something that you could say meshes? What do all of them have in common? All of them were born in England. But this is different now. Yes, Michael Hector was signed to Chelsea. Although he did not appear for the Chelsea first team, he did train with them. He did travel with them for pre-season tours. And he was given a squad number at Chelsea. Signed in 2015, and we know 2019 is when he left for Fulham. And he spent 3 years at Fulham and now at Charlton Athletic. So I made mention about a minute ago in relation to the situation there. So why is Whisper's move different? Because this is historic. First Jamaican-born football player at Chelsea. After Raheem Sterling. John Whisper Richards becomes the first Jamaican-born football player after Raheem Sterling to join Chelsea Football Club. Fantastic. And when you think about Jamaican-born football players that have gone on to represent or play at some of the big clubs across England and by extension the United Kingdom, you think about John Barnes, played at Watford, Liverpool, Newcastle United, and then ended his career at Charlton Athletic. But there are others as well. There are other Jamaican born football players that did quite well at big clubs. So, who was the first Jamaican born footballer to win the top flight in England? That was Lindy de la Pena. Lindy de la Pena won the top flight league at Portsmouth. And he did, at that time, they didn't have medals like they do now. But at that time, they did receive plaques and certificates. So Lindy de la Pena is a Football League winner and was the first Jamaican to win the Football League. Lindy de la Pena, the legend. Lindy de la Pena, the legend. There are other Jamaican born football players that have done fantastically well. What about Jill Heron? Jill Heron was born in the 1920s in Jamaica. Born in Kingston. But what happened? What happened? He played for St. George's College in football, won Manning Cup and Olivia Shield in the 1930s, and then he went on to represent a Caribbean All-Star team and beat the Caribbean All-Star at that time, a Jamaican All-Star versus a Caribbean All-Star. He even beat Herb McKinley as a schoolboy. After that, he went to Canada, and he was later enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force. In that time, persons from England saw his skill, but he signed for Chicago Sparta. And being there, they were able to travel to the UK. And by scoring goals within the UK, he was spotted by a scout of Glasgow Celtic, and he signed for Glasgow Celtic in 1951. So, Jill Heron Scott, another Jamaican-born footballer who signed for a behemoth of UK football. Remember, Celtic are the first British club to win the Champions League. The first British club. Nobody can ever take that away from Celtic. They were the first British club to win the UEFA Champions League. The first. Jill Heron, Celtic. John Barnes, Liverpool. Raheem Sterling, Liverpool. Manchester City, Chelsea. Dejan Whisper Richards, Chelsea. And you can't leave off Leon Bailey. Why? Aston Villa are also giants within their own rights. Aston Villa won the European Cup, which is now called the Champions League, in 1982. They are a Champions League winner. They're a club that has won trophies. They are a club with pedigree. And you cannot dispute that. Leon Bailey, Aston Villa. Dejan Whisper Richards, Chelsea. John Barnes, Liverpool. Watford, Newcastle United. Raheem Sterling, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool. Jill Heron, Celtic. These Jamaican footballers have been pioneers in their own rights. And now it's time for Whisper. Yep. It's time for Whisper to write his story, his journey. Because the chapter of his journey will commence quite soon. Only a matter of time. Only a matter of time before it begins. We could talk about Alan Skilcola as well, from his time in Brazil, playing for Club Náutico in the 70s. He himself as well is a pioneer. Alan Skilcola, 72 years old, was a striker, played in NASL with Atlanta Chiefs, and then in Brazil with Náutico. And another one that I feel is one of the most underrated has to be Neville Oxford for his time as well. Played overseas, played locally, represented the country. the grand uncle of Reece Joel Oxford, currently playing at Augsburg in the Bundesliga. That's where he is right now. Once again, Jamaican born players making strides, making waves, creating memorable moments as we record this chapter, this latest chapter in football history. Yeah. It's one that we should never forget. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments. Yes, Abs, how are you? Big up, Simon. Hope you're good. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? Congrats to the young man. Absolutely, he deserves it. They don't make it to Chelsea's first team, most of them. It is true that in terms of the progression, not a lot of them make the first team, but you can rest assured that playing opportunities, whether it is limited in the first team, you know for sure that you will be either going to a Premier League club or a Championship club on loan. Wicked Man Burp says I'm actually a Jamaican citizen. Yeah, laugh. Dawn Rush Music says it's a good look. Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought it was Walter Boyd. I thought Celtic was. Celtic is Scottish. Celtic is Scottish. Remember, Walter Boyd was at Swansea, and Swansea's Welsh. Remember that one. More academies producing more talent, investing, starting from the high schools where they may already have a start as it relates to an infrastructure, training dorms, as they still will be. Academies are building. Phoenix Academy, Ballers, KFA, Norfolk Strikers, Benders, Exodus. They're academies and it's growing. So it's now to ensure that those academies can continue to create alliances, partnerships, and long-term relationships with Europe, because that is the cornerstone of our game, football. Football in Europe, that's what we want to see. We want to see our players plying their trade in Europe. That's the pinnacle. Europe is where paradise is for football. Aston Villa have more Champions Leagues than City and PSG combined. Yep, very good observation, my friend. And I can tell that you are a fantastic person in math class, because 0 plus 0 only equals 0. So you're absolutely right there. I have a take I would like to share with you and the viewers, Simon. Okay, go ahead, no problem. School get good coaches and agents will definitely ensure these players can play overseas and spread across the world in bulks. Jill Heron is the father of the great American singer Jill Heron Scott. That is right. D, right? That is right. He is the father. Very, very good observation. And as we know, he was very successful within his craft. Wicked Man Chris says, Kilcole can put enough young green boy way a play in the JPL to the sword to this day. What do you mean green boy? Do you mean players of Veer, players of Chapeltown? What do you mean green? Daniel Denny says Damari Gray gets a Jamaica call-up. No, he has not been called up for the games against Trinidad and Tobago. No, he has not been called up. So Simon, remember that Donovan Ricketts signed with Bolton in the Premier League? Yes, and I'm aware of that. I was just referring to the big clubs. Bolton, when they were in the Premier League from 2001 to 2012, they were fantastic. They had a deep run within the UEFA Cup. They had some exciting runs within the cup competitions. They even went to the semi-finals of the FA Cup in 2011 when Ricardo Fuller's Stoke City beat them to get to the final to play City. Yeah, that's 2011. And also, they had some shock results in the league where Bibi scored in a victory over Man City. Bibi scored in a victory over Newcastle United, and other results of that nature. But as more referring to the more established clubs that have won trophies, that have pedigree, that have done something solid. Ramon Osborne, how are you? What's up? I hope Amari and Malik can look after him. Amari, Malik, Dion, and others. And if you listen to the list right now, I'll go through it with you. This is what the Chelsea's academy is looking at like right now. Omari Hutchinson, Malik Mothersill, Dion Rankin, Dujon Sterling, Silka Thomas, Mason Burstow, and that's right, Dujon Whisper Richards. That's seven. That's seven right there. DJ Venator says the sky is the limit, Whisper. The sky is the limit for him.